Distinguished guests, scholars, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being here tonight. I think it's going to be a very interesting night. In 2 weeks' time, my countrymen in the United States will be going to the polls. And I think some of the voters will regard this process as a right, and some will see it as a privilege. I think in either case, the founding fathers of the United States regarded the vote as a moral obligation for the citizens in a democracy. I think in most liberal democracies, the freedom to vote was a very hard-fought right. And for the United States, of course, we won our independence and established our democracy through the course of a revolutionary war fought against England. More recently, I think there are many examples over time, but the Arab Spring is very instructive in this regard, where particularly the youth movements were leading the way to give the people a role in the way they were governed in those countries as well. And there's a lot of evolution left there. I think in Northern Ireland, there's been painstaking efforts to establish devolved government and to give the citizens an ability to shape policies, as well as deepen the process of reconciliation that's really respected around the world and gives Northern Ireland a status as a model for other countries to emulate in many ways. We have 5 members of the Legislative Assembly tonight who will act as judges, and while they're off stage at the moment, I think I can say that I'm confident that they would agree that the democratic process is essential to good governance and that every vote has significance. I think we can look at the United States to attest to that. As in the year 2000, in that particular election, in the end it was decided by a few hundred votes in one particular place. So these things matter, and so it's very interesting to have the opportunity. My staff in Belfast told me that in that particular year they operated an event in a hotel for the election downtown, and they said, we're not going to close the event until the election results are announced. And so they kept it open a bar, and they ran up a huge tab, but also they were sending people home in the morning commute instead of the evening hours. Of course, I have to quote Winston Churchill, who said, it has been said that democracy is the worst form of government except all the others that have been tried. And you have to agree to a certain extent that all democracies have their imperfections. And I think in our own experience in the United States, we affirm that democracy is constantly evolving and changing, and it's always a work in progress. I think that, however, the presidential debates this year have been very important to the democratic process, and we can see in the first debate perhaps some swing in momentum between the two candidates, and the second 2 debates, or the second and third debate, were also very important. On that note, I'm very grateful to the debating teams of Queen's University and the University of Ulster for the debate we will soon hear. And in my short time here, I've been also privileged to meet many academic leaders and students from both universities, and I'm very confident that we'll have a fantastic and interesting debate this evening. I'm also very pleased that we have the talented William Crawley tonight as our moderator. I was privileged to share the stage with him last night at an event in Stormont. He's an Eisenhower Fellow, and he has a very deep understanding of the United States, our values, and our political dynamics, and I think he'll add a lot tonight. So please join me in welcoming William Crawley onto the podium to get things started.
Thank you very much, Greg, Mr. Consul General, and welcome to this debate between the University of Ulster and Queen's University. I'm a graduate of Queen's University, but I used to be on staff at the University of Ulster. So I'm the ideal, impartial judge, moderator for the evening, and it's my job simply to introduce you to those who are taking part, and to keep our times right, and to introduce you to the judges as well. We're within 2 weeks of this election. And it is an election which will not only change the lives of Americans, of course, but will change the lives of people across the world in terms of American foreign policy and American involvement in different parts of the world. So we covered a lot of course in journalism for that reason, because it has a greater impact on our lives than we often realize. Who is the current President of the United States? You can tweet your way through tonight's debate. You can tweet your questions, your comments, your responses, your judgments all the way through it. And I think we'll have, do we have a slide, or do I read out the hashtag, which is POTUS NI, if you're a fan of the West Wing, you'll know what that stands for. POTUS NI, President of the United States, NI. And you can also tweet directly to the US Consul General's Twitter account, USA in NI, if you're on Twitter. The rules of the evening are very simple. We will have two teams, 4 members of each. They'll have 4 minutes only to speak on the question, who should be the next President of the United States, making a case for Mitt Romney and making a case for Barack Obama. And at the end of that period, I will then invite you, we'll have some microphones, and you can put some questions to our avatar presidential candidates. You can do that directly to the teams, but not to individual members of the teams, for fairness. So please already start sharpening those questions. Try them out on Twitter. If you can't think of one yourself, ask somebody on Twitter to send you one. And you can put those directly to our teams for about 15 minutes, and then we have a summing up from the team captains, and then our judges will retire to decide their verdict. And we'll find out more from you and from the panel at that point, from the contestants, about some of the election issues tonight. So without further ado, let me introduce our judges. Let's welcome the judges to the room. Our judges are seated in the front row so that they can watch none of them. They're not just trying to pay attention to the logic and listen to the arguments, also look carefully at the presentation. They are Jennifer McCann, who comes from Twinbrook, the Twinbrook area of West Belfast. She's Junior Minister at the Office of First and Deputy First Minister. She is a community activist who's worked on a number of projects in the Cullen area of the city, including the development of Sally Gardens Community Centre, the Safer Neighbourhoods Project and the Cullen Community Festival. And she currently works in the Falls Community Council's Community Drugs Programme. Jennifer is a mother of 3 children and is a Sinn Féin councillor from Dunbury Cross on Lisburn City Council. Jennifer, please stand and take a bow, would you? Sitting next to Jennifer is Colin McDevitt, the SDLP MLA for South Belfast. He's the SDLP Party Health spokesperson sitting in the Health Committee. He's also a member of the Policing Board. He was born in Dublin. He spent his formative years in Spain. He served as a special advisor in the first power sharing executive, advising the Minister for Agriculture and Rural Development, and he's a former managing director of Weber Shandwick, the PR media company, and also a former chairperson of the Chartered Institute of Public Relations. Colin, take a bow. Next to Conal is Mike Nesbitt, leader of the Ulster Unionist Party and a former broadcaster from Northern Ireland, educated at Campbell College and Cambridge. He's married to a broadcaster and former on-screen colleague, Linda Bryans. In 2008, Mike was announced as Commissioner of Victims and Survivors, and he resigned from that post in 2010. And in the 2011 Northern Ireland Assembly election, he was elected for the Strangford constituency, and he was elected Ulster Unionist Party leader this year. Mike Nesbitt. Alistair is next to Mike. Alistair Ross has been a DUP member of the Assembly for East Antrim since May 2007. He was the youngest Unionist legislator at Stormont when he first took his seat. Born in Belfast, he was educated at Harmony Hill Primary School, Friends School, Lisburn, and after his A-levels he read political science at the University of Dundee, where he was awarded an MA honours degree. And away from politics, he is a keen sportsman playing hockey for Lisney Derby Hockey Club, but he hasn't brought his hockey stick. Stand up. have one final judge who will be joining us very, very soon, and that is Chris Little. I'll tell you about Chris so that you'll know who he is as he walks into the room. He's the Alliance Party member of the Northern Ireland Assembly for East Belfast. He succeeded Naomi Long as Alliance MLA and as Deputy Chair of the Assembly Committee with responsibility for the scrutiny of the policy of the Office of First and Deputy First Minister. He's a graduate of the Washington Ireland programme, educated in Belfast and at Queen's University Belfast, where he took a first-class honours degree in government and politics. In his absence, let's welcome Chris Little. Oh, he's just joined us. You timed that, didn't you? You timed his entrance, so that you had a grander entrance than the other judges. You're very welcome. Let's welcome now our candidates for the office of President of the United States from the University of Ulster and Queen's University Belfast. Let's welcome them to the room. Do please be seated. Yeah. You don't have chairs? I think you carried that off brilliantly. They made it look like they were standing for the Consul General. Let's rescue this team. Thank you very much. Now, I hope that wasn't a deliberate policy by Queen's to welcome the University of Ulster to the team. I would hate to think that that was a student prank. So thank you very much to our teams from both universities. I will introduce them individually as they come forward to speak. To you, Peter McKittrick, at the front here, will be timing this better than a TUC conference meeting, and he will be very strict. I should point out that they will be awarded points and points will be taken away for just about anything, as far as I can see. Peter has put together rules that are more complex than the rules governing the real Mitt Romney and Barack Obama. So if they even stray by a second beyond their allotted time, they'll lose points. Our judges will be judging them. You'll see them with their panels on everything from the logic of their argument to the delivery of the arguments, to picking up points from the other team and responding, to their knowledge of the American Constitution, quantum mechanics, just about anything else they can think of judging them on. So let's get going. First up, from the University of Ulster, representing the case for Governor Mitt Romney, is their team captain, Kelly Kaufman. Kelly was raised in San Francisco, California, and moved to Derry 5 years ago. She enjoys outdoor sports, cooking, and learning new things, which is just as well, because I think this is her first debate. She's passionate about expanding her travel experiences and foreign language skills, which of course brought her to Northern Ireland. And she hopes for a career in international relations and diplomacy, and I think this might be her first interview. Please welcome Kelly Kaufman.
Thanks so much for that warm welcome, and thank you, Mr. Crawley, for making this all possible. And thanks to the US Consulate for really putting this all together here tonight. As a team, we would also like to thank Queen's, both the Student Union for hosting this and their debate team for engaging with us tonight. Thank you. But why are we all here? What is the purpose of this debate? The American people need a leader who's going to usher in an era of prosperity and not recession, who's going to bring about new jobs and not unemployment, who's going to restore the American image in the hearts of Americans and all over the world. The American people need this. 4 years ago, they voted in change, and what has change done for them? Now we need change again. We need change away from the depression and despondency that Americans are experiencing under their current government. The American people are experiencing the most profound and personal depression that they've experienced since the 1930s. The Obama administration promised jobs and promised economic growth, and yet the amount of people that are relying on food stamps to feed their families has risen by 50%. The American debt has nearly doubled. American students are living under $1 trillion in student debt. And Obama's flagship plan, this Obamacare idea, was dismantled by the American public because it took the crucial issue of American health and it treated it with a dispassionate, one-size-fits-all set of bureaucracies. Now, Obama did end the war in Iraq, and he did bring some of our troops home from Afghanistan. Some. He brought some of those home last month, which is convenient because this is just during the time he was trying for re-election. In addition to that, it was on his watch that his American ambassador appointed to Libya was murdered by a mob. Now, I have no doubt that Barack Obama is a good man and that he's a well-meaning man. But the simple fact is, the Obama administration has failed. The American public need a leadership. They need somebody who can follow through on their promises. They need somebody who can set them back on their feet and encourage them to dream again of an American future that they all hoped for. They need somebody who, as it says in the Constitution, is willing and able to pursue the liberties for themselves and for their posterity. That leader, ladies and gentlemen, is Mitt Romney. As he was governor of Massachusetts, he turned the deficit into surplus. He reduced unemployment. He added tens of thousands of jobs. He reduced unemployment. He did all of this while working with an adversarial state legislature. When he was working with the 2002 Olympics, he saved them from the verge of collapse just after 9/11. He has over 25 years growing economies, growing small businesses, and working with the American people. Mitt Romney's administration has a 5-point plan of how they are going to get America back on their feet. They want to make America energy independent so that they can be self-sufficient in their energy. They want to make Americans ready for the jobs that they are going to, They want to give Americans the skills they need to succeed. And they want to give Americans the jobs that they need so they can use those skills to feed their families. Romney has a comprehensive 5-point plan of how he's going to do these things and how he's going to get America back on these feet. His business expertise and his governorship speak for themselves as clear skills and successful experiences, growing businesses, restoring people to fortune, and restoring Americans to their former lives. The Obama administration's last 4 years, well, what experience can we glean from that? America's left jobless, is left in debt. These are how the facts stand. How will you decide?
Thank you very much. And now, speaking on behalf of President Barack Obama is the team captain for Queen's University, Andrew Carruthers. Andrew's in his second year of an undergraduate degree in modern history. Before being elected president of Queen's Debating Chamber, he was involved in school debating as secretary of the Royal Academical Debating Society and winning the Northern Ireland Schools debating competition. He also won the Godkin Medal for Outstanding Maiden Speaker at the Literary and Scientific Society and has represented the university in a number of All-Ireland competitions. Andrew Carruthers.
Dr. Crawley, Consul General, ladies and gentlemen. I like being able to fire people. My wife drives a couple of Cadillacs actually, and most worryingly of all, I'm not concerned about the very poor. These are all gaffes attributed to the current Republican presidential candidate, Governor Mitt Romney. Does he believe these things? Certainly, but the gaffe lies in him saying so publicly. However, we rather graciously believe that any ad hominem attacks based on these statements will do nothing but cheapen this evening's debate, and any attempts to embarrass Governor Romney will be of no use, as quite frankly we think he's perfectly capable of doing that on his own. Instead, we intend to focus not just on why Governor Romney is the wrong man for America, but why his much maligned opponent, the incumbent President Barack Obama, assuredly is. Ladies and gentlemen, it's very fashionable nowadays to attack and to criticise President Obama. He really is caught between a rock and a hard place, with liberal commentators arguing that his reforms haven't gone far enough, while those on the right constantly present him as a dangerous and a radical leftist, determined to play hard and fast with the very fabric of American society. We believe that this is a result of a misunderstanding on the part of many onlookers, ignorant of what President Obama has done over the past 4 years, in the midst of, let's not forget, the greatest financial crisis since the Great Depression. When it comes to the economy, President Obama has passed a much-needed stimulus package, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, which pumped billions of dollars into the US economy. He bailed out the American car industry, thus creating 250,000 new jobs, whereas Governor Romney, however, opposed any such stimulus or bailout. President Obama has also pledged to stop throwing America's weight around overseas. He's ended the war in Iraq, put in place a timetable for withdrawal from Afghanistan, and signed a nuclear treaty with Russia's President Medvedev. Mr. Obama has advocated the repeal of the infamous "don't ask, don't tell" ruling for the American Army, and pledged to come to a diplomatic solution over the issue of Iranian nuclear weapons. He also presided over the killing of Al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden, whilst negotiating cuts in defence expenditure of $487 million over the next 10 years with congressional Republicans. All while Mr. Romney and his advocates here tonight have done nothing but politicise the killing of American diplomats in Libya and accuse the president of cowardice for not backing hasty military intervention in Iran. Hardly, I think we can agree, the actions of a statesman-like prospective president. At home too, President Obama has enacted some much-needed reform. In a feat which no president before has been able to accomplish, he introduced universal health care. Ironically, let's not forget, very similar to that which Mr. Romney introduced as governor of Massachusetts. The president supports tax breaks for those on middle incomes, while advocating a fairer contribution from those at the top. He's also cracked down on illegal immigration, whilst expanding the qualifications for American citizenship. He advocates reproductive rights for women, investment in education and clean energy, and the creation of new jobs, whereas Governor Romney, however, prefers to offer no alternatives and simply criticises the president for trying to help America recover from someone else's financial crisis, someone else's war, someone else's mess. We strongly believe, ladies and gentlemen, that President Obama is the right man for the job, not just because, as some are cynically claiming, because he's the lesser of two evils, or because Mitt Romney is simply just more awful. Rather, we argue that this is a clear choice between two paths. We wholeheartedly believe that President Obama is the right path for America. And throughout the course of this evening, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to prove it to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So that's both team captains have already begun a flurry of arguments. You'll be making up your mind as we go. And later on, I'll be asking you, when the judges are out of the room and you cannot influence them, who you think got the better of this debate tonight. Speaking next for the University of Ulster, representing Governor Mitt Romney, is Gareth Quigley. Gareth was born and raised in the Bogside area of Derry and is a final year student studying law and international politics. After his undergraduate degree, Gareth took up a career in finance, occupying a number of management roles in the finance sector, and he intends to continue his academic studies in the United States. In his spare time, he manages a volunteer soccer team in Derry for disadvantaged people. Please welcome Gareth Quigley.
Thanks very much for coming along here, people, but as expected there, my esteemed colleague didn't mention anything about Obama's plans for the future. Topical. Now, this presidential election, it's the last chance to change things for America. 4 years ago, he campaigned on a message of hope and change, but if you speak to many Americans today, they'll tell you, if anything, they feel hopeless and they feel shortchanged. A nation has been divided because of his policies. It's been divisive. But 4 years ago, Barack Obama said that if he didn't fix the economy, he would be a one-term proposition. That is a winning lottery ticket for any candidate to challenge an incumbent. And Mr. President, we're here to collect. Now, talking about an economic plan, basically what I'm looking to do, as I said, it's all about job growth. I'm a businessman, 25 years of experience. You know, we balanced the books at Bain Capital, we did it at the Winter Olympics, we did it at Governor's Massachusetts. I've got a 5-point plan, the first of which focuses on energy. Not Solyndra, where $500 billion was invested in green energy, only to go bankrupted, people losing jobs. Basically what we want to do is we want to make North America energy independent by drilling offshore in Alaska and making sure that we can create jobs and opening up that Keystone pipeline that my esteemed colleague decided to try and avoid. That'll create millions of jobs for people at home in America. The second part of that plan is going to be focusing on trade. Now, Latin America is a great opportunity to open up for trade. We need to clamp down on China because the way China is manipulating the currency, Barack Obama went there, he bowed down to the president. I don't know about you, but America is not going to follow. America leads. On education, now, it's something that Barack Obama is very, very passionate about, and it's something that the federal government is very passionate about, but we need to give control back to the states because the thing is, there's 47 different training programs, and those 47 training programs are housed in the federal government. They're looked at by 8 different heads, 8 different agencies. The overhead is too much, it's overwhelming. We got to get the money back to the states, and when the money goes back to the states, it gives individuals the opportunity to progress their own paths, to pick the jobs that they choose that's going to be better for them. The fourth point of my plan is basically on the deficit. Now, Barack Obama will say that he inherited an economic mess. Well, he did say that he would have the deficit. He failed on that point. $10 trillion of debt is now $16 trillion of debt under the Obama administration. That's $6 trillion. Now, to give you an idea of how much that is, there's about 311 million Americans that live in the United States. If you bought every single American an iPad 2 at $500 a pop, and bought every American an iPad every year for 40 years, only then would you get $6 trillion. That's the type of debt we're dealing with. Now, on my final point, small businesses. Now, if you are the CEO of a company and you want to balance your budget, do you hire a lawyer or a businessman? A businessman will create you jobs. A businessman will balance the books. Small businesses are the engine of the American economy. We want to drive the economy forward. My opponent, he wants to drive the economy off a fiscal cliff. Ernst & Young last week published something that came out in the Washington Post that said this Thelma and Louise policy of Barack Obama will burn 900,000 jobs, and in the process, it'll put us back into a recession. We can't allow that to happen. My priority are jobs, and so what I want to do is bring down the tax rates, lower deductions, exemptions and credits, because if you get the rates down to create jobs, there's nothing better for getting a balanced budget, having more people working, earning better pay, and on that there, paying more taxes, because that there, like I said, is the most effective and efficient way to get the balanced budget. Now, don't ask yourself the question of whether you're better off 4 weeks ago than you are today, because that's something that the Obama administration wants you to believe. Just ask yourselves, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And you'll find out for many Americans that's wrong. 4 years ago, Barack Obama campaigned on a promise of hope and change. Where's the hope? What's changed? If anything, it's got worse. But on that note, I just want to say, Mr. President, you promised, you tried, but you failed. Thank you very much.
Sponsored by Apple. Speaking now on behalf of President Obama from Queen's University is Julia Andrade Roca, who is a postgraduate student studying Irish Studies and a member of the Queen's Literary and Scientific Society. She earned her BA at St. Mary's College in Maryland with concentrations in English and Women, Gender and Sexuality Studies, and was a recipient of the Margaret E. Keane Award from the American Association of University Women for displaying a commitment to lifelong learning, the advancement of women, and responsibility to society. Please welcome Julia.
Dr. Crawley, Consul General, ladies and gentlemen. Consistency being one of Mitt Romney's many challenges. It's not entirely clear what direction a Romney White House would go in when it comes to many of the progressive social changes, and I would argue that those are the changes that we got, that President Obama has overseen in the last 4 years. And it's almost impossible to use Romney's record as governor of Massachusetts, considering how drastically some of his views have evolved since then. So I'd like to argue that Romney's vagueness and inconsistency throughout the basically 6 years that he's been campaigning for office, in addition to Obama's willingness and openness to represent all Americans, means that it's imperative that Barack Obama remain president of the United States. Because whether it's providing opportunities for young Americans who want to contribute positively to their adoptive country, or guaranteeing equality to members of the LGBTQ community, or fighting for people to have reproductive choice in their lives, Barack Obama has shown he is the sort of president who listens to the people he represents and helps to change lives in a positive way. Mitt Romney, on the other hand, has had the problem of being defined by a party moving increasingly to the right, to the point where there are no clear answers now that he's attempting to woo back so many of the voters that he's alienated during the primaries. For example, what would happen to the would-be dreamers, young undocumented immigrants who were brought to the United States as children, who have applied for President Obama's deferred action visa? Now, Romney's stance on this has been fairly unclear until a few weeks ago, but even then he was not the most clear on what would happen would he become president. He said that he would honor those visas that were issued underneath President Obama, but this raises more questions than answers. For example, with the application process lasting up to 6 months, many dreamers wouldn't even hear if they got this visa or not until January, or possibly afterwards. Romney has refused to answer what would happen to those people who are in the application process now. And he hasn't even made it clear if Deferred Action Initiative would then be halted under his presidency. By giving no specifics, he wants to somehow appease his base while no longer further alienating potential voters. But the thing is, he can't have it both ways. And most importantly, if he becomes president, there's no way to have it both ways. Then there are members of the LGBTQ community who were faced with the possibility of not only a President Mitt Romney who has been wishy-washy at the very best on civil rights, but a Vice President Paul Ryan who is quite possibly the worst gay rights voting record coming out of the House of Representatives. A Romney administration would also see a push for a constitutional amendment defining marriage as between one man and one woman. And this is quite an interesting fact because this is showing inconsistency even with his own party. It shows that this isn't really a states' rights issue of marriage should be left up to the states. It shows that this is more about putting religion doctrine into law. Obama, on the other hand, spearheaded the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and he also vowed to approve the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, in addition to calling on the Justice Department to stop defending the clearly discriminatory Defense of Marriage Act. He has proven to the LGBTQ community that he is the sort of person that they want in the White House. And finally, long gone is the gubernatorial candidate who said he would preserve and protect a woman's right to choose. He said this in 2002. Now we have the Romney who said in October 2011 that he would appoint justices to the Supreme Court who would help overturn Roe versus Wade. Now, regardless of your feelings on abortion, I think that this is a really terrifying prospect. This is a candidate who is willing to undermine the very nature of the Supreme Court by suggesting that he will not base his decision on an ability to impartially interpret and uphold the Constitution. Instead, he wants to further polarize the Supreme Court, something that is already an issue when we have 5-4 decisions almost every day, almost always divided by ideological lines. Depoliticizing the court seems like an impossibility under Mitt Romney. So I'm afraid that Mitt Romney is so focused on appeasing a base that is veered so far right that he's little regard for creating a functioning government that considers all members of the union. That is why I submitted my absentee ballot 2 days ago and I voted for President Barack Obama.
Julia. We're halfway through the main speeches, and it's the turn next of Mark Kyle to make the case for Governor Mitt Romney. Mark is from Ballygowan, but is keen to stress that it's not the Ballygowan where the water comes from. He is a third-year student of social policy at the University of Ulster. Academic interests are the role of ideology in policy making. That must be a great Friday evening, Mark. And the origins of the British welfare state, and that's the morning after. He enjoys watching ice hockey and the BBC political comedy The Thick of It, which I know is way too much realism for our judges tonight. Please welcome Mark Kyle.
Consul General, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, can I address the glaring omission in this debate so far? And that is to say that our opponents have yet to propose a coherent economic vision for the next 4 years. In fact, Mr. Carruthers, the captain of our opponents, stated that there was an $800 billion stimulus. He's correct. And the unemployment rate stayed at 8%. So I don't accept that as an explanation whatsoever. In fact, the debate, the statement that we've just had on social policy is tinkering around the edges. However, in the next few moments, I will outline Governor Romney's vision to resolve America's healthcare crisis and to reform education so that no child is left behind. Education is a cornerstone of Governor Romney's plan to restore the American economy. He recognises that in these times of economic turmoil, the future of America is inexorably linked to its ability to compete. President Obama claims that billions of dollars he has spent on education is an investment in the future. In fact, it is money he has borrowed from the future to fund the programs of the past. Mitt Romney is passionate about affordable and effective higher education. Right now in America, there's a lot of graduates who can't get jobs. And as the demand for skills increases, so does the price of higher education. He wants to recruit new teachers and streamline the evaluation process to ensure America's students get the best education possible. President Obama has made much out of his Obamacare legislation. But let's examine what it is that President Obama forced through the Congress. The Affordable Care Act is a cumbersome and complex piece of legislation. It numbers about 2,400 pages, and there are thousands and thousands of pages of regulations still being drafted. It creates in excess of 150 new bureaucracies to run the state health care. And as the need for affordable care continues to increase, these bureaucracies will drain resources and test the federal budget to destruction. But how does he pay for it? He has raised $500 billion by cutting from the Medicare. This is something that supports seniors in America, and if we truly respect them and want to support them, we should return that $500 billion to that program. He's also raised $500 billion of tax cuts on people from middle-class families to small businesses. President Obama, a man who says he is committed to reducing the federal deficit, has created $1 trillion of debt, a crippling albatross around the necks of middle-class America. President Obama will tell you the states are not capable of looking after the American people. However, Mitt Romney's record as governor speaks for itself. As governor, Mitt Romney worked with the state legislature to pass a healthcare reform bill that benefited its entire people. Governor Romney dramatically increased the number of insured citizens so that now Massachusetts has the second lowest level of uninsured citizens in the entire United States. As president, Mitt Romney will restore leadership to the states so that each state may pursue a health care plan that will most benefit its own citizens. And he will return $500 billion to Medicare, and he will roll back $500 billion of tax increases imposed on ordinary, hard-working Americans. The media would have us believe that this is a two-horse race, that Americans must only choose between two men. However, this election represents so much more than that. A clear choice has been placed before the American people to support President Obama, a man who believes that the federal government knows what's best for your family better than you do,
or to support Governor Romney, who will curb the hegemonic rise of the federal government and return power to the states. A vote for Romney is a vote for change. Thank you.
And speaking on behalf of President Obama from Queen's University is Sam Donaldson, who's currently studying politics, philosophy and economics, PPE, here at Queen's University Belfast. That's the kind of degree that usually betrays an interest in a political career, but we'll see. He's playing his bets carefully. He's interested in social theory and political economy, so we'll have a great evening with you on Friday night. A couple of bottles of wine, who knows. And he's also fascinated, he says, at the upcoming US election, which is great, otherwise he wouldn't be here. He believes, and I'm reading, that the outcome of this election will be pivotal in how the United States and the rest of the world develops over the next 4 years and beyond, and for that reason, he will be telling us tonight why he thinks Barack Hussein Obama is the best person for America and for the rest of the world. Please.
Dr. Crawley, Consul General, ladies and gentlemen, when President Obama stepped into the office in January 2009, the world was reeling from the economic meltdown witnessed only a few months before. GDP had withered by over 5%, 800,000 jobs being hemorrhaged from the economy each month, stocks had plummeted, manufacturing confidence was an all-time low, and unemployment was rising. Assuming responsibility to tackle these issues is certainly not an enviable position to be in. Look at the Northern Ireland Assembly. But it certainly requires leadership and sound economic policy. It certainly requires leadership and sound economic policy, strictly independent from ideological dogma, both of which are assets President Obama certainly brings to the floor. The past 4 years have not been easy, but the picture is becoming ever clearer that President Obama's economic plans have been a benefit in aiding to restore confidence, growth and jobs to the US economy. President Obama now presides over a lower deficit than was inherited. It's gone from $1.2 trillion to $1.1 trillion. A stronger manufacturing sector thanks to the Recovery Act, net job creation despite harsh conditions, and stocks yielding greater returns, suggesting that the American economy is in a lot better position than that of 4 years ago. This could only have been achieved through governmental intervention, political courage, and a willingness to invest in people with the helping hand of the state, not leaving them at the mercy of the invisible hand. I offer tonight a choice which was made to the American people 4 years ago, for this choice cannot be limited to a single term. Do they wish to live in a country where the government lends a helping hand through progressive economic policy, with the emergence of fair taxation for companies and individuals, and the ability to acknowledge that as times change, so too must policy, and values that underpin an economy that works for those at the bottom as well as the top? These are the principles that have and will remain if President Obama is re-elected. Of course, with Mitt Romney, the choice is different, but don't be fooled. The main argument for Mitt Romney is, as a businessman, he just knows what's good for the country. Smaller government, lower taxation, chainsaw-free red tape and bureaucracy. One of the principles you would think as a Republican he would defend, therefore, is that of lower taxation for all, since of course the state must be essentially coercive in nature. However, whilst Obama has cut taxes for the typical working family by $900 a year, which has helped ease the burden of living expenses and acted as a mild form of economic stimulus, Romney's plans to return to the days of Bush-era tax cuts would obviously have to be paid for in one form or another. And since the Romney-Ryan plan for growth is so riddled with inconsistencies and economic illiteracy, the most expected outcome is that the wealthiest in the country would benefit with severely reduced tax bills, whilst a typical family would yield a tax hike of around $2,000 a year, or spending cuts so harsh which would knock economic confidence to a horrendous low. In other words, the average American will not be helped by Mitt Romney. It's hardly surprising considering his time of gain capital involved improving his own bank balance while outsourcing jobs at the expense of American workers. And this is before we even look at the economics of Obamacare. Romney claims that he'll slash the deficit by cutting Obamacare, but he won't. He'll increase it. In fact, repealing Obamacare would increase the deficit by $109 billion over the next 10 years, according to the CBO. It's nationally about getting rid of inefficiencies and saves money for the government.
Point of information.
Yeah.
Now, you just mentioned the Congressional Budget Office. What about the report coming to the sources under the second term of Obama, which the deficit in the debt actually be $20 trillion under President Obama? What do you respond to that?
Well, I think that was. Sorry, what was the term?
It was the Congressional Budget Office that said a second term under President Obama would say 2020. If you get a second term, it would be a $20 trillion debt that we
Yeah, of course it will. The deficit is coming down, debt is increasing. You know, you can't have debt falling at the same rate of having actual deficit. It doesn't make sense. We will have to have long-term debt, which we can actually pay for in the future through Keynesian policy. But the next 4 years will be absolutely crucial in determining how the economy is shaped. With our president, it's very simple. Working together to deliver effective tax policy, we put more money back in the pockets of American people and help prevent the likes of Mitt Romney paying a pathetically low rate of 14% income tax, with the desire paying even less. With even greater quality of income comes greater ability for American people to stimulate the economy in terms of having actual capital to spend for their communities. This is the lifeblood of the American economy, and through this the greatest benefits will be witnessed. A deficit dropping due to improved tax receipts, consumer and business confidence, searching for increased aggregate demand, improved job security and confidence, and a society in which social cohesion will increase alongside improved standard of living. Ladies and gentlemen, I really cannot stress this enough. In this election, it's a choice between hope and fear. With Romney and Ryan, you're going to look at having a message of fear for the national debt, fear for the children's future, planning fears of everyday lives. We refuse to play this approach. An economy based on hope will be one of hope. If you're having actual demand in the economy thanks to willingness to produce stimulus. I really cannot stress enough that it's the economy which will decide this election. We will work hard to reduce the deficit and acknowledge the need for social reform for economic policy and work for a stronger, healthier America for all. America back into, contrast this with Mitt Romney, you'll see America pushed back into recession through unnecessary austerity and create what I fear will be the largest redistribution of wealth from poor to rich, from the have-nots to the have-lots. If America is to continue moving in the right direction, only President Obama will take us there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sam. And that was our first point of information deployed in case you thought he was heckling. They do have the right to make 3 points of information during these speeches, as they know. We've had the first given and answered. We're coming to our last 2 speakers tonight in the main section. Before we come to the audience time, if you're supporting either Barack Obama or Mitt Romney, now is the time to come up with the most complex and challenging question that you can put to the other side, or ask a question that invites even more information from one side or the other in defense of the position you want to defend. Or if you want to just find out what you think about this yourself, ask an honest, open question to either side. And we'll come to that right after our next 2 speakers. Representing the University of Ulster and supporting the case for Mitt Romney tonight is James Gardner. He's originally from Portrush. James studies international politics with a particular interest in political philosophy and human rights. He says he loves swimming, playing piano, and Katy Perry. Not, I think, all at the same time. He spent last year studying in the United States alongside travels across Europe, so he's obviously not worrying about a grant here tonight, James, and he intends to pursue postgraduate study, as he puts it, with an open mind, but tonight his mind is firmly settled on Governor Mitt Romney. James Gardner.
Dr. Crowley, Consulate General, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for having me. I just want to put in a few kind of rebuttal points to what was brought up on the economy as Queen's section. I consider a lot of what Queen has said so far tonight to be quite a personal attack on Mitt Romney. What Mitt Romney said on Monday night was an attack on me won't matter. That isn't a policy. Income tax will still be at 60%, taken in by the rich, so that's just the main point I wanted to address. But let's move on from policy. It's potentially one of the only battlegrounds in this debate where differences can be set aside and focus on some common ground can be made. Mitt Romney is going to pursue a policy of America leading the way forward. In truth, an American century. President Obama has delivered on some truly great endeavors over the past few years, it has to be said. The capture and killing of Osama bin Laden was hailed as an international success. However, harsh realities need addressing. Chief military advisors have been saying all week and throughout this presidential debate that America's most serious national security risk is its own deficit, a hemorrhaging effect. What do we detect from that? Mitt Romney has the answer. A strong economy will equal a strong America. With the deficit burning over $1 trillion a year consecutively, I just don't see how anyone could fail to see through the cotton wool this one-term president is trying to pull over everybody's eyes.
Point of information, sir. How do you square trying to reduce the deficit with Governor Romney's promise to invest $2 trillion in the American armed forces? $2 trillion which they haven't asked for and certainly don't need.
I will cover that point later in the debate and also hopefully in the closing statement. As my friend Gareth pointed out, you should ask yourself this, even amongst our international audience here today. Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? For most people who have been in work long enough to answer that question, the answer is invariably no. In the words of Alan Sugar, if you don't balance the budget, you're fired. What is Mitt Romney's solution? First, competition. China has been stealing American patents for far too long. Mitt Romney will put a stop to that. America can't balance its budget if it's having the carpet swept out from under it. Opening up business with Latin America and cutting away all the red tape that stops us from making entrepreneurial investment. With certain taxes and corporate rates lowered towards Latin America, China's economic dominance will be pushed back at least another 20 years. We would take advantage of one of the fastest growing economies in the world, right on our doorstep, within our time zone, closer to our language, and closer to our culture. Governor Romney has identified Russia as a strategic and geopolitical enemy. This has largely been identified as a point used against Governor Romney, particularly on Monday night, but I'd like to get it out there. As many of you will know from Monday night's debate, President Obama largely dismissed this claim as Cold War rhetoric. The missile defense system in Europe, intervention and massacres across Syria, and tougher sanctions on Iran. These are hardly issues to just be thrown away. But seemingly not to the Russians. Why should we grace a country advocating such apathy with a sense of statesmanship? It goes beyond isolationist thinking to a couldn't care less attitude. Mitt Romney will take an action toward peace strategy. This shows how America fulfills its destiny in guiding the UN as it historically has done. This apology tour that Obama has instigated, it sounds like he's apologizing to everyone else but the American people, ignoring our biggest geopolitical ally in the Middle East, Israel, whilst buying to the Emirates who continue to grossly abuse human rights misconduct. There's evidence that most of these countries are supplying armed militant groups just waiting to pounce on the power vacuum still left over from the Arab Spring, ongoing to this day. Iran is now 4 years closer to a nuclear bomb. Obama said to these countries, America has dictated in the past, no more. Well, that's not true. America has removed dictators. It would be a more accurate statement. Obama keeps this mantra going, and I hope it's somewhat relevant at this point he was addressing, that whenever we take money out of foreign wars, that it'll be put back into the economy. We don't think that's true, because if you take out an ordinary GI and put him on veterans benefit, that costs more to the economy than actually keeping that veteran in service and promoting it through rights. What is Obama going to do? Not pay our boys out, risking their necks for his political gain? That's not the American spirit, and that's not what Mitt Romney is going to do. In many ways, this discussion about foreign policy is a reflection on domestic policy. It has become impossible to separate the two. How can we trust a president representing America on the world stage when he can't even wrestle his own economy at home? Rebuild at home is what Obama said late Monday night. That promise was made 4 years ago. A Romney policy will proceed with clarity and resolve. It's about bringing jobs home from abroad. Our friends and allies will not have doubts about where we stand and what we do to safeguard our interests and theirs. The best ally world peace has ever known is a strong America. The last best hope of earth was what Abraham Lincoln called America. Mitt Romney believes in fulfilling the promise of Lincoln's words and will defend America abroad in word and in deed. Thank you.
Our final speaker tonight in this main section is Stephen J. Goss. Stephen is currently conducting a PhD research in modern British history at Queen's, specialising in Northern Ireland and the Cold War. Throughout his 6 years at the university, I'm not sure when that ended. Throughout his 6 years at the university, he's been actively involved in numerous clubs and societies, ranging from debating to fencing. sort of theme there, isn't there? Additionally, he's the head of research for the Belfast-based company KMPNI and advises the Northern Ireland Conservative Party spokesman for regional development and the environment on transport policy, and I'm sure that person's delighted that tonight he will be representing President Barack Obama.
Dr. Crowley, Consul General, ladies and gentlemen. It falls to me this evening to outline why Barack Obama is a vastly superior candidate for President of the United States on the strength of his foreign policy. This, if I may be so bold as to say, is yet another area where the incumbent clearly outstrips his opponent. For, simply by being elected into office, Mr. Obama was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. I feel to see how Mitt Romney could possibly equal such an achievement. This aside, I do plan to offer more substantive explanations of why Mr. Obama offers a much more coherent, realistic and effective approach to external relations and world affairs. From the moment of his election, President Obama has pursued a much more pragmatic approach than his Republican predecessor and sought to repair the massive damage wreaked on America's reputation and international standing by 8 years of George W. Bush. Mr. Obama has sensibly redefined United States foreign policy so as to recognise that Islam as a whole is not the enemy. As a result, the largely counterproductive war on terror, a bizarre idea in itself that you can declare war on a noun, has increasingly not defined Americans' self-esteem or growth. He has further recognised that the problems in the Middle East cannot be solved through the maintenance of American partiality. Obama has attempted to act as an objective mediator in the attempts to reach a solution to the Israel-Palestine problem, for example. Furthermore, rather than maintaining an outdated Cold War-style suspicion of the Russians, Obama has attempted to improve relations between America and the US, between America and Russia, at the same time maintaining a firm line on America's interests. His approach towards Libya has been vindicated by the broadly stable transition it is now going through, and I have every confidence that his stance on Syria will also be proved to have been right. As a result of Mr. Obama's efforts, a rift between the United States and traditional allies has largely been mended, and his country's standing is higher than it has been for a very long time. Compare this state of affairs with Mitt Romney's proposed approach. President Obama successfully captured bin Laden and finally brought justice for the innocent victims of the September 11th attack. Romney, on the other hand, callously stated, it is not worth moving heaven and earth, spending billions of dollars just trying to catch one person. I doubt the victims of this atrocity would agree. Mitt Romney plans to apply pressure on Egypt to ensure it maintains the right sort of government and doesn't step out of line towards Israel. The Republicans also feel, and I quote, that the United States enjoys significant leverage over both Afghanistan and Pakistan. We should not be shy about using it. Well, yes, of course, no harm has ever come from interfering like this in Middle Eastern countries. Romney describes Russia as a menacing presence on the world stage and promises to confront the Russian government over its practices. He approaches Russia as an enemy. His policies will undoubtedly make it so. His policy towards China is also particularly interesting. The Republicans state that their objective is not to build an anti-China coalition. Rather, it is to strengthen cooperation among countries with which we share a concern about China's growing power and increasing assertiveness, so as to close off China's options of expanding its influence through coercion. That, to me, sounds like how you would describe an anti-China coalition, but of course it isn't, and what do I know? Recent polls by both the Washington Post and Gallup have demonstrated that people trust Obama as handling of foreign affairs over Romney by a large margin. Even a Fox News poll, and it's no underestimation to suggest that they are far from being Obama's biggest fans, acknowledges that the majority of voters have more faith in the president when it comes to foreign policy. Only 28% of those in the Fox poll trusted Romney more.
Point of observation. How many governors do we know that will be able to have a strong foreign policy when it's president?
Well, that's not really the issue. He's outlined his foreign policy objectives, and on the whole they're either confused or just ridiculous.
What I'm trying to say is, in terms of governors, how many governors have a good record abroad?
So you suggesting that as he is governor, he doesn't have an insight into foreign affairs?
You can't ask what
He hasn't got it.
Yeah.
What then for the vast majority of us who aren't American? It can be no coincidence that since the Democrats took the White House, the international situation has become less volatile and global terrorism quelled. Only if Obama's approach is continued after the next election is there a good chance that stability and accord can be further established and inflamed situations subdued. If Romney wins with his aggressive, unduly antagonistic approach, then, well, we're all buggered, really. Ladies and gentlemen, there is only one candidate in this election with the practical, tested, and credible policy that America needs. It is undoubtedly President Barack Obama.
Let's thank all of our... It's over to you now, your chance to examine the candidates before our judges retire to make their decisions, and before they do that, we'll have summing up from the team captains again. So, questions from the floor to the Obama team or the Romney team, with as much detail as you would like. Do we have any microphones near the floor, or are we going to shout out nice and loud? Gentleman right here, you're the first. Nice and loud for us.
This is for Mick Romney side.
Mick Romney. Different election. Okay, go ahead.
This is a guy who changed his policy so much. He's so inconsistent. When he first ran, he was saying that we shouldn't get more involved in Afghanistan. We should put more troops in Afghanistan, which Obama has done, and then he's just gone and complimented him on this, saying that Romney is now saying that we should do this, that we should have done this. He's totally come back on what he said originally. And we're talking about a man who wants to have windows which open on planes. This is the most idiotic thing I have ever heard. Thanks.
About consistency or mental health of your candidate, but Kelly, would you like to nominate one answer from this team? Take it anywhere you like.
A lot of that seemed to be a statement, so I guess I'm asking for you to repeat a short question on that, but I think a lot of it was on Afghanistan and Pakistan. I think Mitt Romney, as most politicians do, kind of flip-flop between policies according to what suits them. And I think President Obama is guilty of the same. I'm trying to be diplomatic here.
Flip-flop is a great diplomatic word.
Particularly in Afghanistan, I think what we see in relation to President Obama is how he made a political promise to withdraw troops. He did the same in Iraq. But you see, as he came into the White House, he had to change head of military several times over. And also he did surge kind of implementations of troops, where it was, oh, we're going to take all of the troops out. But initially we'll put in a bunch and then take them all out at once. This has, as we've seen, left local Afghanistani and Iraqi authorities struggling to cope with security issues. So
thank you, James. Thank you very much. A question for the Obama team. Over there. Let's see if we can get the microphone. I think you're gonna do the mic for me tonight? Brilliant. Thank you very much. We just co-opted you, did we? Super. We were not. Over there.
Thank you very much for this here.
Go ahead.
Just simply wish to address the foreign policy issue of Obama, and it greatly grieves me to ask this here because you made some very wonderful points about the strengths of Obama's position. However, how do you answer the question regarding the drone campaign that has been undergoing in Pakistan? In fact, Pakistan is the only country in the world that would prefer to have Mitt Romney in the White House rather than Obama. How would you answer this situation, and would you agree that Obama, by all accounts and by any moral definition, has to give back his Nobel Peace Prize?
think that it's perhaps a bit harsh to suggest that you have to give back his Nobel Peace Prize on the strength of that position. It's been proven to be an effective way of dealing with the problem in Pakistan. I think that's the most important aspect of the use of drones. And the results of it perhaps questionable, but it's better than having lots of American troops on the ground in Pakistan, which would be a lot represented greatly more by the Pakistani people, I think, than the drones.
Question over here. Yeah, thank you very much. Who's this question to?
Hi, this is for the Romney side. One of the very first points that you raised was, I think you said the 50% increase in the number of people on food stamps under Obama's administration. I just want to know how you feel you can raise that point when Romney himself blames the citizens for poverty as opposed to the administration. He's put the onus on them, not on Obama himself, and I can't understand how he had the audacity to claim that that's Obama's fault.
Kelly.
Thank you so much for that question. Can you please clarify for me how Romney claims the citizens were at fault for that?
Well, I mean, his told 47% of people that he's not responsible for because they can't take responsibility for themselves.
Okay, I understand where you're coming from with this 47% comment. It's a throwaway comment that happened in an off-the-cuff speech that's been widely touted as one of those dumb things that politicians say all the time that greatly are embarrassing later. What's just happened, oh dear? When he said this 47% comment, as I said, it was an off-the-cuff thing that he's later greatly regretted, as do we all, right?
Let's get a response to that from the Obama team.
Just if I can point out very, very briefly, as I said in my my opening address, the gaffe isn't that he believes it. It's the gaffe is that he says it, but that doesn't change the fact that he does believe these things. The fact remains that it doesn't matter how off the cuff your speech is. In fact, I think one could use an off the cuff speech as a better example of what a politician actually thinks, because it hasn't gone through the censors, it hasn't gone through the fact checkers.
Okay, Kelly.
I completely disagree with what you're saying. I know where you're coming from. When it comes to looking at what Mitt Romney plans to do, he's coming at this with a 5-point plan of how he's going to restore the average American. He's not going to be president of the 53%. He's going to be president of the whole America. So that is what he's planning with this 5-point plan. He wants to restore grassroots, middle income, and wealthy Americans to where they should be as Americans.
You still have the microphone. Do you want to respond to that?
I'm sorry, but I think a gaffe is when Romney makes a joke that bombs about Obama's citizenship because of his middle name. He didn't mean it, it was a terrible joke, nobody really got it. That's not a gaffe. The 47% thing isn't a gaffe. It's a speaking point that he used in a certain environment because it was suiting him. That's not a gaffe.
Quick response, Kelly.
I understand what you're saying there. I agree with you. It's not like it's a quick mistake. That was a mistake made in a different type of circumstance. It wasn't just a throwaway joke. Mitt Romney doesn't want to joke about the plight of Americans. He's saying that 47% of people aren't likely to vote for him because they might not agree with his social policies. They want a government that will look after them. Thomas Hobbes talks about a government that will look after people. They will cede their rights to the government and they will be looked after. Mitt Romney believes in that, but he wants to look after the 47% whether Obama will or not. So he's creating this 5-point program which will look after them even if he doesn't get their vote.
Should we get the microphone over here? Do you want to make a comment on this, or are you taking us to a new question? A new question. Is it for the Obama team? Thank you very much.
Just going back to what you said briefly about Romney being a flip-flopper, according to his policies and opinions. I don't think he's a flip-flopper, I think he's like a gymnast or an acrobat. But my question is regarding Romney's record on job creation. I don't know how you can say that he has been a good advocate for job creation even when he was governor of Massachusetts, because his state, when he was governing it, was 47th out of all 50 states in America for job creation. So how can you, and he sent jobs to China, he's invested in companies that sent jobs to China, obviously being went bankrupt. How can you say that he has had a good record in job creation?
How can you say that Governor Romney has a good record in job creation?
Well, just on the point that you made there, that it's something that the Obama administration do try and push, that they inherited, you know, the mess from George Bush, and it's very similar for Mitt Romney. When he went in as governor, he inherited, you know, education that was 50th, you know, the same with the deficits, and when Mitt Romney left, they went from 47th to 30th. So although 30th, you know, was a number one, he did progressively move the state along before he left.
It was 47% according to CNN.
CNN? Well, well, CNN, they have a great reputation, but I think they sort of fell behind Fox about 20 years ago. But looking at modern statistics, you know, Mitt Romney has a successful record of creating jobs. Whether you look at Bain Capital, or if you look what he did at the Winter Olympics, you know, they were in a deficit. They couldn't generate any income. When he was brought in, basically what he did was he did advertising, he went to Congress, he pleaded for funds, he turned that Winter Olympics into an absolute success. George Bush praised him for his success, and Harvard actually created a business program based on his policies that turned something from a deficit into a surplus, and it was one of the best Olympics that was ever seen.
We're going to take a couple of questions to the Obama team now, so if you're focused on the Obama team, keep your hand up over here. Thank you very much. We've been grilling Romney for a bit, let's grill Obama now.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's a follow-on from that question, but more looking to the future rather than to the past. I spent a large part of my own time back and forth to America doing business in America, meeting a lot of business people in America who are, coincidentally, the majority of those people are Democrats. Many very, very excited at Obama's election. And one of the things that I've found surprising over the past few years, as I've been traveling back and forth, is the swing that I see between business people in the United States from a Democratic point of view to a Republican point of view, principally because there does not appear to be a coherent plan for economic growth in the States. And I was wondering, can the panel articulate what the plan actually is? Because the President certainly can't.
All right, thank you. Sam, what is your candidate's plan for economic growth?
Well, I think the crucial thing to look at is that over the past 4 years, we're going to carry this forward for the next 4 years on the basis of the strengths of the past 4 years. I admit that, you know, unemployment has remained relatively station-based where it was in 2009. Private job creation has been, it's been there. It hasn't been as high as it ought to be, but it has been there. But really, what I would like to see from this president, and at least he
Sorry, can I just respond? Let's just hear him first, and then I'll just come to you. Yeah.
At least he still acknowledges the fact that stimulus is needed in the American economy continually. I mean, we have interest rates of 1.7% in the States. Those should be...
But what's the plan? What is the plan? I'm not hearing that.
Well, as I was saying, the interest rates of 1.7%. If you're able to have a sort of Keynesian-style stimulus, you know, to pay in order to boost the crumbling infrastructure, that'll create jobs, that'll boost the economy, it'll make the economy certainly more productive on an international scale. So really what we need to do is maintain stimulus that's being put forward by the administration, maintain that from any sort of ideological dogma and insult from where Romney's standing. And if we do that, then we'll start to see growth, we'll start to see greater growth, we'll start to see more business confidence. I believe that's what will take us forward for the next 4 years.
Quick response from Governor Romney's team.
I think I might be in a better position to answer that question for you. You just touched on it there, that our policy, you know, their agenda is basically the same as it was for the past 4 years. Borrow, beg and steal from China. Now, they basically want to say, you know, that we brought the manufacturing back from the brink. Well, they did. Yeah, the bailout cost $1.1 trillion to do that. Where did they get it from? It wasn't from the American people because they didn't have the money to pay for it. It was China. China wrote them a check, $1.1 trillion. That's what brought the manufacturing back from the brink, not Obama's policies. Now, when
very briefly,
just on Barack Obama, you know, when he says that you know, unemployment will be 5%, he's 9 million jobs short of that. You know, his agenda, like I said, is there is no agenda. Sorry, I'll actually double back on that. There is an agenda. A personal attack on Romney. That's their agenda.
All right,
more the same, double down, more deficit, more debt.
From the Obama team.
Well, I think on the point of the auto car bailout, certainly we do believe that to be a a success in the workings, because the American car industry has bounced back. We're creating jobs, we're seeing job creation coming from that industry. We're seeing these firms are actually able to pay back the loans that were given to them by the state. So it really kind of shows how, with government intervention in the right sort of stream, you can create growth and you can create an economy which is built to last, and that's really what we're trying to drive at.
Thank you very much. Another question to the Obama team. We've had two on to Romney. Let's get lady in the front here. Switch across. Thank you very much. You're a tough audience, by the way. I wouldn't want to face you in an election.
This is just regarding the women's vote. I think, Mr. Obama, one of your first bills that you ever signed was an Equal Pay Act, or something along those lines. But an analysis by the Washington Free Beacon of White House pay actually indicated that women in the White House are underpaid by 18%. What do you have to say for yourself?
As all the male parties.
The reason we look Julie is not because of anything like that, it's because she's the person on the panel dealing with social policy, domestic
social policy expert. Give us your response to that. Only 18%?
I think ultimately that
I thought she was going to answer.
Would you like to answer? Okay, I'm diving in front of the bullet. I think that's an issue that has to be looked at and has to be addressed. That's not to say that by standing up here we're going to condone every decision that has been made by some of the underlings in the White House, that's been made by chiefs of staff, that's been made by other people working in the White House. However,
I think the audience wants to know what rank an underling is. Is that like a Secretary of State? Underling?
I would also like to point out that as far as that act that Obama signed, Mitt Romney has actually not made a stance on whether he would sign that or not. So I don't think that saying, oh, Obama hasn't done everything perfectly, then means we should vote Romney in, because I would argue it would be much worse for women if Romney were then elected.
But don't you think it's a little hilarious that you sign that bill and then don't even implement it in your own White House?
I mean, I would then go back to Andy's point that we're not here to defend every single one of his decisions, and I'm not sure that Obama is the person who sits down and approves every single salary of every single person. Yes, ultimately the buck stops at him, but I don't think that we can hold him responsible for every single salary in the White House.
Okay, the grilling continues. Let's get the microphone. Have you spoken already? Don't yet. We got it? Well, you don't want to. I'll give it to him. He wants it. It's not like pass the parcel. You don't have to speak once it stops.
Thank
Who's
you.
this a question to?
This is a question for the Romney.
Governor Romney.
Governor Romney, you say that Iran is the biggest threat to America. You say Obama has said that he will bring troops out of Afghanistan by 2014. You haven't given no clear policy in that there. How can we trust you to defend the world? I'm not a citizen of America, and as a citizen of the world, foreign policy of the United States will influence me the most. How can I be assured that your leadership will be better?
How will your leadership be better for the world in terms of foreign policy? I'd like to speak for Mitt Romney. I just repeated the question. How will your leadership of the world in foreign policy be better than Barack Obama's?
I'd just like to first touch on that point that you made about Afghanistan, and then maybe one of my teammates here can touch on the rest of the question.
Yeah.
You said that Obama had made a deadline of when he was going to get troops out of Afghanistan. That deadline has changed many times, and that deadline was first put in place by George Bush. So if you'd like to follow Bush-era policies, there you go. I think it's also important to mention that with regards to the Afghanistan policies, some troops were taken out recently. That was while Obama was trying for re-election, so that was probably kind of pandering for a vote. And I think it's also important to notice that as those troops were taken out, they were taken out during a time of political, electoral, looking for votes, and not necessarily towards the will of the American people, and not at the recommendation of America's generals. So I think if you're worried about foreign policy with regard specifically to Afghanistan, Obama maybe shouldn't get your hypothetical vote.
Thank you very much. That is a question to the Romney team. Very briefly, 20 seconds.
Just firstly, we present the implication that the Obama administration is a continuation of Bush-era foreign policy. He ended the war in Iraq, he's withdrawing troops from Afghanistan, he's come to arrangements with President Medvedev, he's determined to come to a diplomatic solution in Iran, and he's not paying for foreign wars on America's credit card, so we completely refute that allegation.
Thank you. Question to the back.
Sorry, when you said Medvedev there, is that when he bowed down to him and says that I'll have more flexibility when I get a second term?
Or they can find out with a response, or
Question from the back. Oh, it's President Medvedev.
Hi, Vice. We all know that in 2008, Barack Obama was elected in on a ticket of hope and change by many first-time voters and graduates, but it was the vice presidential candidate for the Republicans, Paul Ryan, who said graduates shouldn't have to live out their 20s in their childhood bedrooms looking at faded Obama posters. Why should first-time voters and young people give their vote back to Obama when they feel betrayed?
I think we have to first look at how Mr. Ryan would like to address that problem. I think Mr. Ryan is right to discuss that as an issue, but I think the way he'd seek to go about solving the problem is completely wrong by introducing some sort of free market economy for university where you pick the best university at the cheapest price. We think that's a ridiculous way to run a university, which isn't a business. A university is not designed to make a profit. A university is designed to invest in education in a completely non-monetary sense. So to introduce a free market economy to university education is laughable.
Another question from the floor. Oh my goodness, it's all over the place. Should we go to this side? No, we've just been to that side. Let's go to that side. Gentleman with a rather impressive beard.
Thank you especially. This is for Romney's side. Given that you sort of state an emphasis on the small business as a way into recovery, and also you talk about energy security, and you talk about drilling more for oil as a sort of path to energy security, which is not something I necessarily agree with myself, but more to the point of given the track record of deepwater drilling, specifically Deepwater Horizon, and the impact that had on the Gulf of Mexico. How do you square that with your interest in deregulating businesses and also at the same time improving sort of America's economy through the small businesses which could well be adversely affected by the energy policy espoused by Romney?
So your business policy, particularly on oil, and haven't you kind of given the game away in terms of your own investedness in this? Who'd like to have a go at that?
Well, first of all, it's a very good
How did I know it was going to be you?
Look, I mean, it's obviously something that's a very critical issue. Foreign dependency on oil, as Obama rightly came up with, it has to come down. Now, we can't be held, to hostage to OPEC, and basically, the amount of money that it costs to bring oil home, from abroad is it's just too much. So basically, what Romney wants to do is he wants to create jobs by drilling offshore and in Alaska, and by opening up the Keystone Pipeline, which Barack Obama, basically voted against. He didn't want that. He tried to bury that under the table, and it's something that he said he'll address in his second term. But going back to a point about your question, the deep drilling, the thing that happened with the Obama administration, obviously in the Gulf, it's a national disaster. It's something you can't account for. But hopefully going forward, lessons will be made from that. But going forward in terms of policy, like I said, our energy policy is based on job growth. It's based on growing the economy, and it's based on bringing jobs home.
Thank you very much. Another question? Over this side. Right there. Let's get the mic to you.
This is about the assassination of Osama bin Laden, so it's for Obama. America is
We have the mic right there.
Oh, thank you. America is known as an advocate of democracy and justice, but yet Osama bin Laden was clearly assassinated. How can you possibly convey this to the rest of the world that it's actually okay?
Is the assassination of bin Laden consistent with America's claims about international justice?
Yes, I think it is. I don't think that we could have given bin Laden really any sort of fair trial or fair hearing, because he would have used it as a platform to espouse his position and opinions, and that would have just contributed to even worse atrocities throughout the world. So I think
Does that mean you were always opposed to giving him a trial?
No, but I don't see in this situation how Bin Laden could possibly have been given a fair hearing. Because the mob, of course, has also been out to get him as well. So it's, you know.
But some would say the same would be done for Saddam Hussein, who was hung. He went through trial and he was found guilty. Why didn't the same happen with Obama? Sorry, back to CNN, but exactly with that.
Security service rush into the room if you don't care. Do you want to respond to that? I mean, do you support the killing of Osama bin Laden, or is that something that divides you?
I think certainly the riddance of Osama bin Laden was hailed by the American people as a positive image. I think had he been captured, it would have been positive. Had he been killed, it would have been positive. But I do think, as she pointed out, he should have been put to trial. I think that had Mitt Romney...
Excuse me, sorry, do you think that personally, or do you think that defending Mitt Romney?
I think that personally.
So I would ask, what about Mitt Romney?
So is that the Romney position? I'd rather you didn't kill him.
Romney's policy certainly advocates that it was good to get rid of Osama bin Laden, but it was also a critique that Obama had been given the opportunity to hand the responsibility over to the Pakistani government, and he chose one path, which she critiques, but most other American people agree that it was the right path.
We're nearly out of time. One final question. One final question, which I'll put to both teams, whoever's asking this question. Here we go. Let's get a mic to you. No trouble waking this audience up tonight. You've been absolutely terrific. Thank you for all these
Okay, I'm a regular viewer of Fox News, and I'd like to ask a question about President Obama's socialism and his class war rhetoric. I'd like to know, where is it? I'd like to know why the Obama administration is going to sort out the deficit by cutting social programs and not raising taxes, instead of doing things like raise taxes and tax parasites like our Governor Romney, by doing something, for example, like taxing capital gains at the same rate as income tax. So therefore, he wouldn't get away with 15% a year. So, where's the beef?
Well, in a personal capacity, I very much agree with you. But I think
did you just disagree with your own team there?
I'm going to get on to the point. I believe in a realistic approach if we're going to apply realistic economics here. I think that you need to get the balance right between tax cuts and spending rising. And for whenever you're trying to stimulate the economy, you need to obviously look at the way in which you're achieving that balance. I think that through tax cuts, which have been implemented under Obama in the past 4 years, $3,600 has been shaved off the tax bill of an average family. So obviously that works as a stimulus. It's more money in the pockets of the average American. And also, what we're trying to drive towards is trying to get away from this return to Bush-era tax cuts, which, for the top 0.1% of Americans, it would actually give them a $750,000 tax cut annually. So I think you're onto something really crucially important there, which is our administration are really trying to drive down inequality within the system.
Are you going to tax the super rich significantly?
Well, we would certainly look to ensure that you can't tax the wealthy too much in order to, in fear of sort of having people going offshore and taxes going AWOL, but we would look at trying to get the balance right.
All right, let's put that to the Romney team as well. What's your tax policy, and how are you going to tax the rich if you are, and how are you going to help the poorer?
Well, first of all, just to draw a distinction between Obama and his position on socialism. He does believe in the free market, so we applaud him for that. But at the same time, he does believe in certain socialist policies. He believes in central planning. If you'll forgive me, he's more of a nanny-in-chief than a commander-in-chief. That's just pretty bad. But that's
We're with you.
I'm still here. But with regard to Obama's policies, Obamacare is not going to cut the cost of healthcare for the average American family. In fact, it's going to cost an extra $2,500 a year. So that's not a policy that favors the poor whatsoever.
Yes.
Also, Romney is proposing a more aggressive or deeper cut to corporation tax to help stimulate the economy, to create jobs, and to pay for that, he won't raise taxes on middle class families, nor will he raise the actual income tax on richer people, but he will close some of the exemptions and the loopholes that they can take advantage of.
Gentleman asked about socialism. Do you believe Barack Obama is a socialist?
No,
You don't?
but no, I don't believe that he is a socialist in his economic outlook. You know, I believe that he can't be a socialist anymore because Mr. Thatcher said that the trouble with socialism is that eventually you run out of other people's money to spend. And at the end of the day, that's what's happened now. He's spending China's money and he's maxed out the credit card.
Well, that's your message to the American people. Barack Obama is not a socialist.
I don't think, unlike our opponents, I don't think anything is to be gained from us engaging in that kind of aggressive rhetoric. We've seen time and time again ad hominem attacks on us. We have a positive message for America's future. Thank you.
Let's thank our candidates. Such an informed and rather aggressive audience tonight. I felt grilled on their behalf, and they did brilliantly, both of them. We're going to ask our judges now to withdraw, and then we'll talk a little bit more. Oh, okay, all right. Well, if you insist. In a minute, we're going to ask our judges to withdraw. Normally that happens in the ear. They don't yell at them. But before we do that, I'm going to move to our concluding statements, and speaking first, representing Governor Romney from the University of Ulster, is Kelly Kaufman. Welcome her back.
Thanks. Well, I think we can all agree that the Obama administration has done some great things. They removed Osama bin Laden from being a threat to the American people, and they withdrew troops from Iraq. These things were greatly applauded by the American people. But I think it's important to mention, as we did before, that when Osama bin Laden was kidnapped, he was taken from foreign soil. This was an act that was met by a hailstorm of abuse on the American image. The idea that America was some kind of egotistical, hypocritical, self-stylized world policeman. This has done so much damage to the American image. And even as Obama withdrew troops from Iraq, well, he maintained the troops' presence in Afghanistan, to the detriment of thousands of people who are still away from their families, to the detriment of the American people who want their troops at home, preserving to old-fashioned policies that Mitt Romney just doesn't support, and to the detriment of the advice of American generals. I think it's also clear to this room, and I'd like to point out even still, that we haven't seen a clear economic plan, a clear agenda of how the 4 years are going to move forward. We don't know what we're going to get in the next 4 years, but Governor Romney has told us how he will grow the economy and how he will improve America's future. As was said in a point of order earlier, Romney is asking for more money for the US military. This is true. We still have troops overseas that need protection. We can't be sending out American lives in Humvees that need replacement or in ships that have holes in hulls. The US military helped form America, and it serves Americans so many more ways than just walking around in fatigues, holding guns and bullets. It's an integral part of the American culture, and it should be preserved and protected even as our men and women are in war zones. It all comes down to this. The beautiful picture of America has been scarred. Economic mismanagement and poor governance have left Americans jobless, sometimes homeless, without positive ideas of their American image, and oftentimes without even any hope. My cousin Nick is a postgraduate student in LA, and he plays his violin on the street to make ends meet. He can't find a job, and if there was a job for him, he'd be underemployed, underpaid, and thanks to Obama's tax policies, he would have to give a considerable chunk of his paycheck right back to the government, even as a student. So he plays his violin in the street to pay for his bills. My good friend Lindsay just graduated from university with a degree in psychology, but because the cost of uni is so high and because the cost of living is so high, she had to move right back in to her parents' house. And she voted for Obama 4 years ago. She has a job now, it's not in her field, it is an underemployed position, but she's hoping that if she works for 2 more years, she'll be able to save enough money to go back to grad school. She sat in her room, which used to be her nursery, and she told me that she doesn't want 4 more years of this. No more should our best and brightest be languishing at home, unable to achieve their potential. Americans need real jobs that will put real food on the table. I have here a $20 bill. Now, there are a lot of things I can do with this. I could give 20, 30, 40, 60, 70% in taxes to my current government. I could give it to a charity shop or a homeless person, or I could save it. Hopefully one day I'll be able to afford a vacation or a car. There's a lot of things that I could do with this. But the most important thing is that I have it. The average American lost their surplus income under the last administration, meaning that if they had a $20 bill, it would be already designated for repaying bills or for paying their kids' school fees. The most important thing I can do with this is be glad that I have it. Mitt Romney has a clear plan for how he's going to restore America. He's going to make 12 million jobs he's promised right out of the gate, 12 million. Mitt Romney has the business and political experience to make this happen, to control the deficit and to restore jobs to America. America needs Mitt Romney. Thank you.
Well, you know a speech is good when that happens. Well, that was an impassioned defence of Governor Mitt Romney from Kelly Kaufman from the University of Ulster via San Francisco. Now we have an equally impassioned, I'm sure, defence of President Barack Obama from Queen's University. Please welcome back their team captain, Andrew Carruthers.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think we can all agree a great deal of evidence has been presented before you all tonight by both sides of this debate. The opposition, their first speaker, accused us of simply standing and attacking Governor Romney, whereas in fact we spent the entire evening trying to set out President Obama's plan. The opposition claimed that Governor Romney's priority is prosperity for all, especially the middle class. But they failed to point out that the non-partisan Tax Policy Centre claimed that Governor Romney's tax policy will help the rich the most. There's no consistency in this team. The first speaker claimed that under President Obama the debt has doubled. The second speaker claimed the debt has gone from $10 to $16 trillion. And the third speaker said the debt is up $1 trillion. I think that we can all agree our opposing team do not understand the basic fundamentals of economics. While the debt may have gone up under certain circumstances and on certain readings of the evidence, the deficit has come down. The two are not synonymous. Essentially, ladies and gentlemen, as a wise man once said, is the economy stupid? We, ladies and gentlemen, have attempted to demonstrate why President Barack Obama is the man for America. These detractors standing before you today call him a radical, determined to lead America down the path to tyranny. This, I think we've all demonstrated, is nonsense. President Obama is a statesman, he's a moderate free marketeer, and he's a staunch defender of human rights and American liberty. His opponent, by contrast, is the radical, determined to impose his blind ideology, and I think we should point out that of his wealthy backers, on America. Mitt Romney is the man advocating a return to the disastrous neoliberal policies that left America and the rest of the world teetering on the brink of collapse into a modern-day Great Depression. And it's only through the actions of those like President Obama, determined to avoid such a horrific collapse in our generation,
that have saved us from global catastrophe. Governor Romney is blindly tied to an ideological plan that places wealth production as the highest virtue, thanks to the somewhat manic philosophy of Ayn Rand, described by the late Gore Vidal as near perfect in its immorality. As such, the candidate of the so-called Grand Old Party is dead set on removing the safety nets that aid millions of Americans every single year in order to cut taxes for those who need help the very least. He claims he can pay for this without further taxing the middle class, which to him, by the way, includes those earning $250,000, by closing a number of unspecified loopholes, an action which to me smacks of George Bush Sr.'s ill-fated invitation to read my lips, no new taxes. By contrast, President Obama is showing a sensible, pragmatic and centrist approach to dealing with the mess left behind thanks to W's 2 wars paid for on America's credit card, as well as, surprise, surprise, tax cuts for the rich. The President has cut unnecessary expenditure, as well as eliminating tax breaks for those moving American jobs overseas. As was pointed out, at a recent fundraiser, Governor Romney attacked the 47% of the American population who don't pay federal income tax, claiming that they see themselves as victims and feel an undue sense of entitlement. And he asserted this to the general assent of the assembled group of wealthy donors at a fundraising dinner back in May. But it's not, however, those whose income is so low that they're exempted from federal income tax that feel an undue sense of entitlement. Not those who benefit from the much maligned policy of Obamacare. Not those who, in short, feel that President Obama, unlike his rival, has their interests at heart. President Obama is right in saying that there are groups in society, the less well off, the LGBT community, immigrants and ethnic minorities, to name just a few, who are entitled to the state's support. It's Mr. Romney who's radically wrong in asserting otherwise, claiming that their lack of money and their lack of influence makes them second-class citizens in their own country. Ladies and gentlemen, President Obama is, therefore, the obvious choice to lead America. Thank you very much.
Tonight, it is now that moment that our judges have been looking forward to, when they get to retire to a special room we have out there, surrounded by Secret Service agents, a big box where they will place their votes and discuss the winner of tonight's competition. Let's thank our judges as they retire. Big moment in the evening when we get to find out who the winning team is and who the best participant of the evening is in the judgment of our legislator judges. Let's welcome back to the podium the Junior Minister from the Office of Deputy First Minister, Jennifer McCann, MLA. Jennifer.
Obviously, I got the short straw coming up. My colleagues here, no one else would come up, I have to say. Very, very enjoyable debate. I'm sure the audience would agree. Good participation from the audience. You were all excellent, every one of you. I mean, you should be very proud. I guess there has to be somebody that comes that wee bit, just that wee bit, you know, scored higher, not better, just scored higher. And I'd just like to say that it was Queen's tonight. Very, very close second, and it was a very, very difficult decision. So, well done, gentlemen.
The US Consul General in Belfast, Greg Burton, to come forward and first of all to present some prizes to our second team. We're not allowed to say you lost, apparently. You were the runner-up. You were the runner-up in tonight's competition. Greg.
We have prizes for all the contestants. The American presence in Ulster, diplomatic history, so everyone will know which candidate was better for Northern Ireland? Okay, James Gardner. Andrew Crowley? Oh wait, they were not divided.
It's all collapsing already.
Yeah. Well,
we'll sort that
yeah,
out.
we'll sort that out.
Consul General, don't you worry, we'll sort that out. You come forward and make the big prize presentation, which is this lovely trophy. Andrew, would you come forward? I feel a photograph coming on. There you go, Consul General. Well, in that case, I think we should all vote on a best participant for the evening on applause, starting at this end. Stephen. Union, he nodded Gareth into the winning place there. I think the volume did it. Let's thank them all again. It's been wonderful. Thanks to you for coming, and you've been an absolutely terrific audience. I was expecting silence from you throughout the evening. It says a lot about the two universities and about the level of political debate here. It's been terrific. Thank you. Safe home, or safe to the local... Yeah. Wherever you're going, be safe. Good night.